Dementia. It's a word that so many of us know, a word that touches millions and millions of lives. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the profound human cost of this condition, and we'll do it through some really personal stories. But then we're going to turn to the groundbreaking research that's forging a new frontier of hope. So let's just start with the scale of this thing. Right now, more than 55 million people around the world are living with dementia. It's actually the 7th leading cause of death globally. But, a number that massive, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. To really get what that number means, we have to zoom in, way in, on just one story. That's the voice of Mike Daly, and he's talking about his wife of 53 years, Carol. Their 10-year journey with Alzheimer's disease is this incredibly powerful and honestly heartbreaking window into the reality behind that 55 million number. We're going to follow their story to understand the true human cost. Okay, so before we go any further, it is so important that we get our terms straight because it can be really confusing. You'll hear people use the words dementia and Alzheimer's like they're the same thing. But they're not. They're not the same thing at all. Here's the most crucial thing to understand. Dementia isn't one single disease. The best way to think about it is as an umbrella term. It's a name for a whole collection of symptoms, things like memory loss, confusion, and big changes in personality. But what causes those symptoms? Well, that's where the specific diseases come in. Let me break it down with an analogy that really helps. Think of dementia as the fever. It's the set of symptoms you can see and experience. Alzheimer's, on the other hand, is like the flu. It's the actual disease that's causing the fever. Alzheimer's is a specific brain disease. We know it involves these things called plaques and tangles that damage brain cells. It's the cause for most dementia cases, but it's not the only one. Another major cause is something called frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. And you've probably heard about this one recently. It's what actor Bruce Willis was diagnosed with. FTD is different. It's actually the most common type of dementia for people under 60. And unlike Alzheimer's, it doesn't usually start with memory loss. Instead, it goes after personality, judgment, and language first. And just listen to that. That's the internal experience of FTD, described by the Reverend Tracy Lind. It's not just about forgetting a name. It's this profound, terrifying loss of your own self-recognition, a fundamental disconnect from your own identity. And then here's the view from the outside, from the caregiver's perspective. Amy Johnson's question to her husband, Mark, just perfectly captures that bewilderment and pain of watching the person you love literally change into someone you don't recognize anymore. Their empathy, their humor, their very essence, just stolen by the disease. So what does the progression of a disease like Alzheimer's actually look like? Well, researchers have a way of mapping it out. They often use a 7-stage scale, and it shows the slow, heartbreaking erosion of a person's abilities over time. It all starts so subtly, just minor forgetfulness that's really easy to just brush off as normal aging. But then you get to stage 4 and the decline is clear. Complex tasks like managing money, they become impossible. In stage 5, they start needing help with just the basics like getting dressed. Stage 6 brings on a severe decline. They might not even recognize their own spouse. And then in the final stage, the body just begins to shut down. They lose the ability to speak, to walk, even to swallow. It requires total care. It's just a devastating, gradual disappearance. And you have to remember, through every single one of those stages, there's almost always someone right there beside them. A spouse, a child, a friend, the caregiver. Their journey is often completely invisible, but the toll it takes is immense. In fact, they're often called the second patient. And that brings us back to Mike Daly, years into caring for his wife, Carol. His words are just a stark reminder of the physical and emotional price. He suffered from anxiety attacks, chest pains. At one point, he even had suicidal thoughts. And he is not alone in this, not by a long shot. The vast majority of caregivers say that emotional stress is their single toughest challenge. I mean, just think about the burden. It's the physical strain of being on call 24/7. It's the serious risk to their own health from all that chronic stress. It's the profound loneliness. And then on top of all of that, there is the absolutely crippling financial cost. $7,000. That's how much Amy Johnson, whose husband has FTD, has to pay out of pocket for his care every single month. It's a cost that can completely drain a family's life savings and just destroy their financial security. Okay, so after seeing the devastating reality of dementia, it's really easy to feel hopeless. But now we are going to pivot. We are moving from the problem to the pioneering solutions. Let's look at a truly groundbreaking study that's trying not just to treat Alzheimer's, but to prevent it from ever taking hold in the first place. So get this. In a particular region of Colombia, there's this one extended family, about 5,000 people, and they carry this tragic genetic curse. It's a specific gene mutation, and if you have it, you are 100% guaranteed to develop Alzheimer's in your mid-40s. It's a terrible, terrible fate. But it has provided science with this perfect population to test a preventative drug. And this has been a decades-long journey. It started way back in the 80s when a local neurologist named Dr. Lopera just noticed a pattern. After years of incredible detective work, they finally pinpointed the gene in 1997. And now, in a major clinical trial, researchers are giving a plaque-clearing drug to family members who have the gene, but, and this is the key part, don't have symptoms yet. They're hoping to stop the disease before it ever starts. So that Colombian trial is all about prevention. But what about the millions of people who already have the disease? Well, there's a second and equally exciting area of research that's focused on a totally different problem. How do we make the treatments we already have way, way more effective? The biggest challenge here is something called the blood-brain barrier. You can think of it like a super strict bouncer for your brain. It's this natural protective shield that keeps toxins and other bad stuff out. The problem is, it's too good at its job. It ends up blocking almost all of the plaque-clearing drugs from ever getting to where they need to go. So Dr. Ali Rezai and his team came up with this brilliant solution that honestly sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. First, the patient gets an IV of the plaque-clearing drug. Then they inject these microscopic bubbles into their bloodstream. Then, and here's the magic, they use focused ultrasound beams aimed at the brain to make those little bubbles vibrate. And those vibrations cleverly and temporarily pry open the blood-brain barrier, just long enough for a much, much higher dose of the medication to flood in and attack the plaques. And the early results are, well, they're remarkable. The parts of the brain that got both the drug and the ultrasound saw a 50% greater reduction in those amyloid plaques compared to the areas that just got the drug alone. That's not a small improvement. It's a massive leap in effectiveness. It shows we might have a way to supercharge the tools we already have. So from the genetic detective work down in Colombia to these high-tech ultrasound labs in West Virginia, we are finally seeing the first real, tangible glimmers of hope in the fight against this devastating disease. The human cost is still immense, of course, but these new frontiers in both prevention and treatment leave us with this really powerful question. Are we on the cusp of an era where we can finally get ahead of this disease and maybe, just maybe, one day prevent dementia before it even starts?